It is my joy and privilege that we can continue our study about the family. And today we have a interesting title that is a question. What have they seen in your house? This question was put to the King Hezekiah by the servant of the Lord who came and said, what did the great delegates from Babylon see in your house when they came to see what happened when God turned the sun for 10 hours backwards? The question is for us also. A family lives in a house or is a house. And the question is, what do people see in our house, in our homes? We remember that when God created humanity, His aspirations were clear, His mind was filled. He used love for everything He did. And He had to put the emphasis on things that were eternal. But after the change of the heart, now the purpose is changed. We want to satisfy our need, our spiritual needs, and we don't hunt for an eternal treasure, but we hunt for a perishable treasure. And this is the deception of our evil nature that makes us to put in the center things which are not central, things which are just means. You see, means become a purpose. And we must see now how that works in our lives. Jesus, in His discourse of the heart in Matthew chapter 6, in the Sermon on the Mount, He says this, lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust does corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust does corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. You see, friends, everything that is visible comes from a source. And we have seen that the heart needs a treasure. In the same thing, in Luke 6, Luke writes some more about this, about the Sermon on the Mount. He says in Luke 6, verse 45, a good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is good. And an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaketh. And Jesus brings this in connection and says, there can never from an evil thing come a good one, and from a good one, an evil thing. So if the well is correct, everything is correct. But if the treasure of the heart is wrong, everything is wrong. Now the problem is, this is an absolute truth. But the treasure of our hearts, the deceptiveness of our hearts with which we are born, can bring apparently good things out on which we can boast. Like the rich young ruler. All of this I did. While in his heart, he was bound to the wrong treasure. So he was unaware what happens. So in order to test the well, God must bring strange circumstances, I call them. They can even be some good thing. That means you can be tested with money, to have, God gives you riches, and He puts you to tests, like He put King Hezekiah. or he can put you to test with difficulties. Now, Hezekiah had a double test, and Hezekiah was the king who was a good king. He did, like the Bible says, what was right in the eyes of the Lord. Or let's say in the eyes of man. Because he destroyed the idols, killed the wrong priests, and he made a reformation in Israel. But what was his motivation? What was the treasure of his heart? He did not know. But God put him to test. So he sends him a disease and sends him a prophet and says, "Thus says the Lord," chapter 38 from Isaiah, "Set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live." Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall and prayed unto the Lord, and said, "Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight." And Hezekiah wept sore. Now Hezekiah was convinced that his heart was perfect. He was convinced that he did the right. It sounds like Job, does it? If we read through Job, we find, especially chapter 32, Job is the perfect person from his actions. It's like you would see Christ or the Son of a God. And that was Job. That was his state before his temptation. And fantastically enough, it was also his state after his test. So, yes, we might think we are right, but it must be proven under difficult circumstances. And Job's test was the most difficult test. Hezekiah wasn't put to such a difficult test. He just here reacts and says, "Lord, it's unfair that you want to let me die when I was such a good servant to you, and I searched you with all my heart." That's how you repay your servant, to put him to rest at a young age. He was about, I think, 48 years old. And do you want to put him to rest at such a young age? So, I hope that his protest shows to every one of us that something is wrong. On the one side, he says, "I am perfect heart with you." But on the other hand, he says, "Lord, you don't deal righteously with me." So God prepared this test for him, like he prepared the test of Job. And he sends his prophet back and says, "Go and tell him, I will heal him. And I will add to his life 15 years. And as a proof, I will make the sun go back for 10 hours. So the sign that God gave Hezekiah for his healing was a powerful sign. And we know now how it happens. If not the law rules, but the power of God through the law, God can make at any moment the sun go back 10 hours or whatever, however he wants. Because by his power, the sun works, not by the law or by the power of the law. So that's why miracles are never a breaking of the law, but a fulfilling of the law. But that's just a small parenthesis. But then we read his story in 2 Chronicles 32:31. And that shows us the Lord's plan, what God intended with Hezekiah when he healed him and when he made that miracle. In verse 31 in chapter 32 in 2 Chronicles, it says, "Howbeit, in the business of the ambassadors of the princes of Babylon, who sent unto him to inquire of the wonder that was done in the land, God left him to try him, that he might know all that what was in his heart." Did God not know what was in his heart? Yes, he knew. He knew this guy was sincere, but he didn't know his heart. So he must bring him in a test. And the test just proves either the heart is right or the heart is deceived. So that the test gives to them who is deceived a chance to convert, and to the one who passes the test, it confirms that his trust in God, his treasure in his heart, is the right one. So let us remember, we have a conscious and a subconscious. We call the subconscious heart. And in the conscious we have our will. There we have our needs. We must satisfy them, the physical and the spiritual needs. And in the heart, by our decisions, we do that. But we have only two criteria for every decision that we have. It's loss or gain. So we must have the gain. That's why we say yes. That's why where the treasure is, there is also the heart. And we must say no for that which is a loss or losing the treasure. Now, we are not aware that we have an eye. And you know from Matthew 6 from 22, Jesus explains the evil and the good eye. And we start with the evil eye. The evil eye that we have inherited has pride and selfishness, and it is the idea that I am God. It's the wrong identity. And so, since I'm a God, I have something to give in order to receive. And then when I do not receive or receive too little or something is taken away, I see myself as one that is in a loss. So this identity can only search for the perishable treasure. That's what Hezekiah showed that he was trusting in. Yes, he did outwardly what was right, like Nicodemus, like many people. The Pharisees in the time of Jesus, Jesus told them they were graves painted outside. They were not aware of it, even though Jesus tried to show it to them. Peter was not aware of it. John was not aware of it. He had to test them when they wanted to walk to that village, and the people came and said, "Lord, please don't come to our village. We don't want to have trouble here." And the Lord respectfully went on to go around the village. But John, "Lord, let's fall down on earth fire, like in Elijah's time." And Jesus says to him, "You don't know which spirit is there in you." Yes, the evil eye, we will see, can do good things in quotation marks, but there are certain things it cannot do. So when we lose something personal, then we are in prison. And then we discover that it is our parish, that it's our heart that has deceived us. You see, when I discovered the heart, how it functions, I said, there's an easy test for every religious leader. Just find out, not matter what denomination it is, no matter what religion he confesses, just find out what he loves most. Find out his treasure and take it away. Let's see how he reacts. In that moment, everyone will discover what's in his heart. And the one that has a pure heart, the one that does not have this eye, but has the good eye that I'm a created being, the one that loves with God's love, who knows that everything he has, he took from God in order to give, like Job, who had the imperishable treasure, who did not keep anything for himself or try to not give it. He proved through that temptation that his heart was pure. He said, naked I came, and naked I go. The Lord gave, and the Lord took. The name of the Lord shall be praised. So if we do not understand what's really the matter in our own hearts, if we don't see what's wrong, and we only can see it through the tests, we cannot see it otherwise. Hezekiah could not see the motivation of his heart. And we don't either. If something does not happen so that it is revealed unto us. So, what is the difficulty of understanding our heart? To see where the impulse comes. Where is that difficulty? Because, you see, the evil eye, it depends with whom it associates. If it associates with an evil company, it does evil deeds. If it associates with a good company, it does good deeds. And I put them into quotation marks. You see, the evil eye can be a very helpful eye. People are very eager to help. They do a lot of sacrifices. 1 Corinthians 13 says they can even give everything they have and lay down their life out of the deception that I am God. But they also can be not helpful. They can be ignorant of the need of another one. They can be neat and they can be on time. But at the same time, they can be messy. They can be not on time. So how one can discern out of which comes that thing out? Now, if it's evil, you know it's evil. But when it is hardworking, and you are a hardworking person and a reliable one, you're diligent. And here is the lazy, the unreliable person. It comes from the same source. Here is the honest and faithful. And on the other side, the not honests and the unfaithful. There is the one that can have a healthy diet, a healthy lifestyle, so to say, on quote marks. He can do his exercise, he can do all those kind of things, keeps his body in a good shape. And there is the other one who doesn't even care about these things. He just eats and drinks whatever he gets. His body gets bigger and bigger. He doesn't care. Out of sinful nature, you can keep all the 10 commandments according to the letter. And out of sinful nature, you can do the same thing. You can break all 10 commandments according to the letter. You can, as was King Hezekiah, protect your children, raise them well, give them a good education, quote marks. And you can do the opposite, like King Manasseh, who sacrifices his own children to the gods. He burns them. Both things you do out of the same well. You can destroy the idols, like King Hezekiah did. And you can, at the same time, like Manasseh, live in full idolatry and yet have the same heart. Now, how can one discern this evil eye? Because it's like a chameleon. You see, it has different color. It just adjusts to the things. Now, we can never discern the evil eye by what it does, except it does the evil. It cannot be discerned if it does the good, that it is coming from an evil source. Now Jesus says, nothing good can come out of an evil thing, and nothing evil can come out of a good thing. That's why, what does he mean? You see, the evil nature can make things like looking good. And we find that in 1 Corinthians 13 so plainly. It says, if you can do speaking with nice tongues, and you have all the knowledge, and you have all the faith to make miracles, and you have not love, even if you give all that you have for the poor, and you have not love, it's worth nothing. So there is a capacity in the evil eye to show somehow a good side. Would it not be easy if evil would be evil and good would be good? Yes, it would be easy. But so, through this deceptive thing, how can one discern it? How could King Hezekiah discern his problem? Now, Manasseh knew it. And he did only convert when God brought him not to a test, because he was lost, but he brought him to a difficult situation where he could see his evil eye. And he repented. The same like King Hezekiah repented. You see here in chapter 32, it says, like verse 24, chapter 32 in 2 Chronicles. In those days Hezekiah was sick to the death, and prayed unto the Lord, and he spake unto him, and he gave him a sign. But Hezekiah rendered not again according to the benefit done unto him. For his heart was lifted up, therefore there was wrath upon him and upon Judah and Jerusalem. Notwithstanding, Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, both he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of the Lord came not upon them in the days of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah had exceeding much riches and honor, and he made himself treasures for silver and for gold, and for precious stones, and for spices, and for shields, and for all manner of pleasant jewels. He had to have the test, and he had to convert. And his last 15 years were years that he lived out of another motivation, of another identity. But if God would have not brought him to this, he might have been resurrected at the third coming of Christ, at the second, when comes not the first resurrection, but at the second resurrection. So let's make it plain. A false identity cannot be discerned by what it does when it does the good. No questions when it does the evil. So the test is not so much for the evil ones, because it's obvious. The test is for the good. That's why even disease does not come because someone wants to do evil. Disease comes because someone wants to impose the right. That's why I could discern on disease the deceitfulness of our hearts, of this foreign body that we inherited from Adam, and this was the flag, or is the flag of the devil in our hearts. You can only discern it in a time of crisis if it's a good thing that you have. And because Job was righteous, he had to test that he had not an evil nature. And because Hezekiah was righteous, he had to test, and he was found wanting. So what can the evil nature not do? And I tell you what the evil nature cannot do. It can never accept someone above itself. When the big people came, yes, when the ambassadors of the princes of Babylon big guys, honored guys, full of power, so to say. When they came, Hezekiah had to prove himself higher than themselves. He had to show that he can do more than them. He had to show us that he is bigger than they are. The evil eye can never suffer someone to be better than him. Never. The evil eye will destroy the good one, like Cain destroyed Abel, like Esau hunted Jacob, like those who go and hunt the Christians or the good ones. Jesus was destroyed or was put to the cross by the Jewish because they could not resist that he was better than they are. They could not resist that. The evil eye can never allow someone. In a certain area, doesn't mean in all areas, but in that where we are strong. And he was strong in riches. The other is strong in sports. The other is strong in, computer games or whatever it is. He's strong in something. And in that particular place, he must be the strongest. That's sinful nature. The evil eye cannot bear unrighteousness. It must be against it. It cannot suffer it. It must be revenge. The evil eye must revenge the evil. It cannot stand it. It cannot stand lies. It must put them and expose them. The evil eye cannot love their enemies. It can never give love for bad things. The evil eye cannot bless the one that does the evil. The evil eye can never give freedom to the one that does the wrong. And we could continue the list. So the test of the eye is not by what it can do, but by what it cannot do. Now with the good eye, it's simple. Because the good eye has all those things. It's helpful, it's neat on time, it's reliable, it's hardworking, it's honest, it's faithful, it's healthy, it keeps all 10 commandments, not only after the letter, because there must be first after the Spirit, then the letter is just the result of it. Yes, the letters are just the effect of keeping it and the Spirit. And it can endure, hope, believe all things. Evil deeds do not exist in the good eye. But even the good eye has incapacities. It cannot. That's why it must be tested. It will prove it cannot act unlovingly. That is, it cannot act unselfish because there is no selfishness in it. If you take the love of God and gives it, it is no possibility that selfishness exists there. But the good eye can never force you to do the right. God never does that. And no one that is a real changed person that knows it's a child of God will ever persecute a heretic or hunt one that does preach the wrong. It will never do it. Because it has no need for that. It allows the evil to exist. And that is only by the power of God possible. Because only as a creature of God, you're connected to God. And out of you comes the identity you live from. That's your Father. As the Father doesn't force to the good, you will not be that. And one nice thing of the good eye is it cannot be fearful. Fear is expelled from the heart of one that is connected to God, who lives out of his love. And we might continue the list, but I finish here. The only way that King Hezekiah and Manasseh and you and I can become free agents, we must expel the lie that is in our hearts. We must expel it. It must be crucified. That's why Jesus came on the earth. We read it, and I read it once again in Luke chapter 2 from verse 35. There says this great man, 34, and Simon blessed them, that was Mary and Joseph, and said unto Mary his mother, Behold, this child is set for the fall and rising again of many in Israel, and for a sign which shall be spoken against. Yes, a sword shall pierce through thy own soul also, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. Friends, the Savior came to this earth to reveal to us what's in our hearts. And since we are all born as the inheritance with this first Adam's identity of I am a God, he must show us our state before we will run to the cross. No one will run to the cross with his good deeds to put them out there. That's why God is careful enough to bring around us enemies, to bring around us people who does the wrong, so that that wrong thing in us just get out, that we might see it. Because in our good time, in our non-stressed situations, we might appear very, very bright and shining, not knowing that we're lost, not knowing that our selfish nature betrays us with the good. So we must have a change of heart. The only way that we might stand the test of that question that God will put to any one of us: what have they seen in your house? So what will you answer? What will you answer when in time of troubles people seize you? When you're surrounded with difficulties and you're exposed so that everything that's in your heart comes out, what will you answer? I know what I want to answer. If God ever, and He will, gives me that question and says, Horst, what did they see in your life? I mean, house or life is the same thing. What did they see in your house? You know, my answer want to be, they saw you, Lord. They saw you. That's the answer I want to answer to this question. And I hope you want to do the same. Amen.